Chapter 20. The C-Rank Curse. Sensei, I believe we may have a problem. They had been traveling for about 2 days now. Summer was drawing to a close in Fire Country as August drew closer with each passing day. Along the cooler borders near the ocean, the leaves were drawing closer to the tipping point of changing color. As they drew closer to Wave Country, the air was becoming more and more pleasant, and the nearly unbearable heat of summer was edging away. Hinata had frequently been scanning the area with her Byakugan in the event a greedy bandit foolishly thought they would have the upper hand by attacking children. Tazuna felt uneasy as he stared at the veins bulging around Hinata's eyes as she stared off in the distance. What is it? I can see 2 enemy shinobi up ahead on the road hiding in a genjutsu. They appear to be waiting for someone. How far? About half a mile away. She replied as she deactivated her Byakugan. You mean to tell me you can actually see that far? Tazuna whistled. The Hyuga are a very prestigious clan within the Leaf. Their eyes allow them to perform incredible techniques, such as seeing great distances, Kakashi informed him. You don't say. Tazuna muttered as he stared at the cute little girl in a new light. Hinata, what rank would you place them based on their chakra levels? Not very high. High Genin or low Chunin. All right. Naruto grinned as he stared, stretching his arms across his chest. So what's the plan, sensei? Kakashi closed his visible eye and hummed for a few seconds before looking down at his students and saying, I don't know. You tell me. Huh? Was their uniform response. He turned to face all of them and said, This is your mission as much as mine. While I'm technically in charge, every leader should listen to the idea of his subordinates. Being in command does not mean you have to think of everything. It just means you make the hard call of which decisions to make. He paused as he let his words sink in. While the threat level is relatively low, don't just slack off and consider this as one of our exercises. Even though I'm comfortable with your skill level, that does not mean you should give it any less than your all. Even a genin can take down a Kage if he is clever enough. He seemed to be staring straight at Naruto as he said this, causing the blonde to blush as the memories from the night he stole the Forbidden Scroll raced through his mind. So, do any of you have any ideas you'd like to suggest? Naruto and Sasuke were silent as they ran scenarios inside their head. However, Hinata beat them to the punch as she slowly raised her hand and said, Sensei, I think I have an idea. He sent her a lazy gaze as he asked, You think? She had certainly made progress overcoming her shyness over the few months with him and the boys. But every now and then, she needed a little push to help her from reverting back to her previous state. Kakashi knew she needed positive support to help her progress, but he could not hold her hand forever. She straightened her back and looked at him square in the eyes. I have a plan, Sensei. Good. Alright, Hinata, let's hear it. Gozu and Meizo, or the Demon Brothers as they like to call themselves, were growing increasingly irritated. They had staked out this spot for over a week, just for this one day when their target would finally be heading home. However, as the minutes ticked by, they began growing impatient. Their prey was taking longer than they had expected. Things weren't going to plan, and in the shinobi world, if your gut told you something was wrong, it was usually right. It soothed their nerves when they finally saw the distant forms of the group approaching along the dirt road. The 3 genin up front were blissfully unaware of their presence as they loudly chatted amongst themselves. All 3 were smiling and laughing over some joke the blonde had said. The brothers ignored them as their attention was set on the jonin, who was currently engaging in conversation with their target. As the group passed by their puddle, they couldn't help but smirk. The jonin hadn't even given it a second glance. The leaf must have been slipping, if this was the quality of the shinobi they were producing. They silently rose from their genjutsu and released their chain as they rushed the jonin full tilt. He seemed utterly shocked as the razor edges dug into him, and he let out a yelp as they yanked on the cords to rip him to shreds. Their confidence was short-lived when the jonin's body went up in a puff of smoke. Their glee turned to shock as the bridge builder moved at impossible speeds for a man of his size and drove his fist into Gozu's gut. He gasped for air and barely had a second to register the pain as the small girl jumped across the bridge builder's back and delivered a nasty kick to his head, sending him flying back. Mezu was yanked along with his brother as the chain was still connected. He tried to release the chain from his gauntlet, but the two boys stopped him as they tackled him to the ground. He growled as he tried to pry them off and reach for a kunai, when suddenly the air was forced from his lungs. Something shifted, and the weight on his chest seemed to triple as the boys crushed him. What the hell was going on? Gozu was in a similar frame of mind, as he too was helpless under the weight of a small girl and bridge builder. Sure, the guy was heavy, but there was no way he weighed this much. These thoughts did not linger, as a bolt of electricity burst from the trees and skewered the chain tying them together. Electricity raced along the metal cable, and they could only scream as 1,000 volts coursed through their bodies. They didn't even notice as the Genin and the bridge builder disappeared in puffs of smoke. As the final shocks dissipated, a blur raced from the tree line, and their bodies screamed all over again as several light taps resulted in their muscles tensing up to a point where they couldn't move. They groaned in pain as the young girl stood over their prone forms. She looked back the way they came and yelled, "We did it, Kakashi-sensei! They have been immobilized!" "Very well done, you three," Kakashi commented as he, the boys, and Tazuna, who was staring at all of them in a new light, walked out of the forest and joined Hinata to look down at their captives. "I think you might have overdone it, Teme," Naruto said as he nudged the twitching form of Gozu with his foot. "Still getting a hand of adjusting the voltage. Be thankful I didn't fry them," he said as he shot a glare down at the Mist Ninja. They just continue to impress, Kakashi thought as he looked down at the duo. Their sparring sessions in the mornings had certainly done a wonder for their teamwork. It was very ingenious for Hinata to incorporate all of their skills into one plan so quickly. Naruto would distract the two and restrict their movements by punting gravity seals on the clones, which would provide Sasuke a clear shot to inflict massive damage, while Hinata would sweep in to ensure they were immobilized. Well crafted and well executed. Now then, Kakashi murmured as he turned his head towards Tazuna, who flinched under the man's gaze. "I believe you have some explaining to do." With each step closer towards the cottage, the group felt more and more tense. Something was coming. That much they could tell. The clear sky of the late afternoon seemed like a taunting facade of the storm yet to come. Hinata's Byakugan was constantly active as she scanned the surrounding area. "Kakashi-sensei, I'm still all for helping these people, but I gotta ask, what exactly are we in for?" Naruto asked. "Could be anything. More than likely, whoever is sent our way will be a missing ninja from the Hidden Mist, just like those other two. Sasuke, don't even waste time with fire-style jutsu. If anyone shows up, hit them with your lightning jutsu and make it hurt." "My pleasure." He smirked as he continued staring off into the trees. Kakashi glanced at Hinata, whose eyes were starting to water from the strain. She was never one to complain. None of them were. But this provided its own problem. They just never knew when to back down. "That's enough. Hinata, take a couple minutes to rest your eyes." "No, I can keep going, sensei," she argued. He had seen the drawbacks of overexerting the Byakugan firsthand from his time in the Anbu. He had been on a mission to Tea Country, where his teammate Tia Hyuga had left his Byakugan active for 3 hours straight. His eyes had been bloodshot. He had to have his head bandaged up to prevent his retina from receiving any more light. It had taken him a month before his eyes were fully healed. For others, the side effects can have long-term effects. "I appreciate your determination, but I'll need everyone in top condition. Take a break, and that's an order." She wanted to argue, but she deactivated her Byakugan anyways and rubbed her sore eyes. "You good?" Naruto asked, placing a hand on her shoulder while she wiped away the water from her eyes. "I'm fine, just stings a little." The group continued along the riverside for 15 minutes before Hinata's eyes stopped stinging. They had been slightly tinged red, but they finally settled down back to their pure white coloring. Once she was comfortable, they would be fine in short bursts. She reactivated her eyes and was startled by an unknown presence off to the right in the trees. "Sensei! Get down!" Kakashi barked as he pulled Tazuna down with him. They all hit the deck as a massive hunk of metal sailed over their heads and slammed into the base of a tree to their left. A lone figure suddenly appeared on the handle of the blade and smirked down at the genin below him. "Oh, this is going to be fun," Zabuza mused as the dense blankets of fog enveloped him. The genin huddled around Tazuna as the fog seemed to close in on them. The tomoes of Kakashi's exposed Sharingan swirled as he stared off into the fog. He couldn't see a damn thing. The hidden mist jutsu was formed when the user infused his chakra into the water vapor in the air. The hidden mist jutsu was formed when the user infused his chakra into the water vapor in the air and spreading it out over a wide area. The more chakra the user had, the longer the mist lasted. What truly frustrated him was that it was almost impossible to see. It was like staring into a big cloud of chakra, making it impossible to discern Zabuza's location. "Hinata, can you still see him?" "Yes, sensei. While the fog is laced with his chakra, his body has the densest concentration. He's 25 degrees to your right."
"Oh, now that's just cheating."
The voice taunted from the mist, sending shivers down the genin's spines.
"Having a Hyuga on your team is no fun. Now I'll have to go out of my way to take her head too."
"Like hell we'd let you!" Naruto yelled as he stepped in front of her.
"Really?" the voice taunted again,
as a malevolent feeling crashed into their bodies. The world grew cold as the killing intent washed into their systems. Naruto had faced awful killing intent in the village over the years, so he handled it better than most. But what he had faced before was nothing compared to this. Sasuke's grip on his kunai grew rigid as his arm shook vigorously. Hinata was a wreck as the killing intent racked through her body. Memories of her father sending her that same disappointed look over and over again raced through her mind. It was too much. What was happening? They didn't even notice what they were doing until a warm feeling rushed through their bodies, and they found Kakashi with his hands on their shoulders. They each looked down and were horrified at the sight of their kunais nearing their throats. What had that done to them? Relax. Killing intent can be hard to counter, so listen up. It can be broken if your will overpowers the user's, or if you inflict pain on yourself. Trust me and use the second method. You are not winning in a bout of wills with this man.
"At least let them try, Kakashi. It would be entertaining to watch,"
a void whispered in front of them. Kakashi tightened his grips on Hinata and Sasuke's shoulders as he offered them a reassuring smile. "Don't you worry. I will not allow my comrades to die."
"Are you sure about that?"
the voice cut in. Hinata's eyes bulged and shouted a warning to her sensei as Zabuza reappeared mid-swing behind Tazuna. The old man could only gasp as the blade raced towards him. Kakashi's eyes widened as he turned around. He wasn't going to make it in time. Sasuke and Hinata were still recoiling from the shock of the killing intent and could only watch in horror as the blade connected with Tazuna, only for it to clang off his body as if it had struck a piece of metal. Zabuza frowned and grunted as his attention was forced to Kakashi, only for it to clang off his body as if it had struck a piece of metal. Zabuza frowned and grunted as his attention was forced to Kakashi, who was on him in seconds. Tazuna was in shock as the genin looked down at Naruto's outstretched hand touching his leg. He was sweating bullets, but let out a sigh of relief as he tugged off a piece of paper from the man's leg.
"What just happened? What did you do?"
"I just increased the density of your body by 130%. Your matter was so concentrated that it would take a lot more forcing or penetrating power than the guy has to leave a scratch on you."
"Then why did you take it off? Put it back, and place them on yourselves for God's sake,"
Tazuna exclaimed as he waved for the tag.
"No can do,"
Naruto wistfully muttered as he watched the tag begin to crumble up before igniting in flames. There went 6 hours of work down the drain. But hey, at least it had served its purpose.
"I'm still testing them out.
They never last very long, and tend to burn out after the seal overloads itself. The seal can circumvent the necessary change in your master volume, but it eventually implodes on itself due to its limitations. Besides, that was the only one I had on hand. They take hours of time to even make one. The process is long. Tazuna wiped the sweat from his brow as Sasuke and Hinata just sent Naruto blank stares. It never stopped shocking them how much he knew about seals and physics. The guy could act like a child one moment, and then drone on and on about the magnitude of magnetic fields, or something equally as complicated as the next. Or something equally as complicated the next. Their attention was shifted as they heard a violent crash of water over the river. Kakashi was doing all he could to redirect the blows from the massive sword. He glanced at his cracking kunai before launching it at Zabuza and reaching into his pouch for another. Zabuza swung his sword in front of him and easily batted it away. He was on Kakashi in a heartbeat, and they were locked in a deadlock once again.
Got to admit, you're keeping up pretty well for a tree hugger. Then again, I'd expect no less from you, Kakashi.
The same could be said for you, Demon of the Hidden Mist. Kakashi grunted as he started to feel Zabuza winning out in their contest of strength.
I'm flattered people in the Leaf know of my reputation.
He smirked as he broke through Kakashi's block and continued his downward swing cleanly through the man's chest.
Kakashi-sensei!
Hinata screamed. Zabuza grinned until Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke.
Shadow clone? But when?
He was cut from his thoughts as he noticed a sizzling sound coming from the kunai still falling in the air. His eyes widened as he noticed the explosive note along the handle. Shit! The explosion rocked the surface of the river, sending a giant ball of smoke into the sky. A few seconds later, a hand breached the surface, and Kakashi pulled himself out from under the water. Set and match, Zabuza. He frowned when the water beneath his feet started to bubble. He could only widen his eyes as a dome of water burst forth and surrounded him, and Zabuza rose up from the water next to him.
I couldn't agree more, Kakashi, he grinned. Water clone, Kakashi thought. You're faster than I thought, Kakashi. I didn't even notice you swinging out for a clone. I assume it was when my line of sight was obstructed as I blocked your kunai.
Kakashi only glared at him from the confines of his prison.
Now then, let's get back to business, shall we?
Zabuza mused as he turned his attention back towards the genin along the shore. His grin hidden under his bindings widened as more clones rose from the surface of the river.
Now, kiddies, are you going to continue to play ninja and try to protect that man? Or are you going to be nice little brats and make this easier on yourselves by getting out of the way?
The group was silent as they glanced back at the man they were tasked to protect. Sasuke and Naruto shared a glance, and Hinata could only confusedly look between the two as some unspoken message was passed. Sasuke smirked as he turned his attention back towards Kakashi. He glanced down at the water below his feet and back to him, causing Kakashi to widen his eyes as Sasuke started weaving through hand signs, and Naruto crossed his fingers.
Shadow Clone Jutsu!
20 Narutos burst into existence along the riverbed, and they let out a unanimous battle cry as they each drew a kunai and charged.
Stupid brats.
Zabuza mused as he ordered his clones to intercept them. They easily tore through the lines of clones, but movement on the beach drew his attention. Electricity crackled from his fingertips as Sasuke knelt down in front of the water. He slammed his hands into the water, shouting, "Lightning style, taser current." Electricity raced across the body of water, slamming into everyone in contact with it. Naruto and Zabuza's clones alike dispelled as 5,000 volts of electricity raced through their bodies. The original Zabuza jumped in the air and tossed a kunai at the brat, while his hand stayed level just enough to keep Kakashi in place. The man in question had his hands placed along the walls of his prison. His face was flushed with concentration as electricity cackled along his hands.
He's using nature manipulation to cancel out the jutsu. He must have lightning affinity.
Zabuza's thoughts were disrupted as something sped towards him. He saw the kunai flying towards him and cursed. He was still in midair from avoiding the current, and barely managed to twist out of the way to ensure it didn't hit him. As it passed, he noted its peculiar shape. His confusion was short-lived, as it was overcome by shock as the blonde kid appeared behind in a flash of yellow light. The kid cried out as he slapped a piece of paper onto the sword on his back and formed a single hand seal. Instantly, Zabuza shouted as he was dragged underwater by the immense weight on his back. Naruto clutched the kunai in his hand as he disappeared in another flash and reappeared beside Hinata, as Sasuke cancelled the jutsu in order to block the kunai sailing towards his face. A smile flashed across his face before he inevitably hunched over and began throwing up excessively. Hinata's hands began to glow green as she rubbed his back. Even through the pain, he looked out to Kakashi on the water surface and smiled. The second Hiraishin kunai Kakashi had given him was certainly pulling through. Kakashi got to his feet and glanced down before Zabuza burst up from the water's surface. Opting to drop his sword for the time being rather than drowning, Zabuza sent Naruto a horrible glare, causing the genin to stumble back. Zabuza was about to open his mouth when he received a nasty right hook to his face. "Your fight is with me, Momochi." Zabuza received 2 more nasty punches before he was able to start blocking. The genin were entranced as they watched the 2 A-rank shinobi hash it out. Their hands were like a blur as they raced through seals. Kakashi reached the end first as a raging tidal wave of water rose up behind them. "What?" Zabuza shouted as he was swept away by the raging typhoon. He slammed into a tree across the river and was bombarded by the onslaught of water. After it died down, he looked up to see Kakashi strolling towards him with a kunai in hand. How? How had he done it? He had used the jutsu he had been planning. Could he actually see the future? Any other thoughts were cut off as 3 sharp senbon pierced his neck. He gasped and slumped over as a masked figure appeared next to him. Kakashi stopped and glared at the new arrival as he checked Zabuza's pulse. The masked figure rose and turned to him. "Thank you for your help in this endeavor, Konoha-san. You have Kiri's gratitude for your assistance." Kakashi simply nodded as he fought to remain conscious. That last jutsu had taken a toll on him. He berated himself as he nearly toppled over. He really had been slouching off. When was the last time he had actually taken the time to train by himself? The hunter ninja stared over his shoulder, straight at the blonde across the river. "You there. I require your assistance." "Me?" Naruto exclaimed as Hinata helped him up. "What do you need me for?" "Could you please remove the gravity seal you placed on the Kubikiri Bocho?" "The Kubikiri what now?" "She means the sword, Naruto." "Oh, right. I knew that. Should I do it, sensei?" "Go ahead." Kakashi knew he was in no condition to fight. The last thing they needed was starting trouble with the Mist Hunter Ninja. "That sword is very important for the Mist. It's one of the 7 legendary swords, and I'm sure the Mizukage would be very anxious to get it back." Naruto nodded as Hinata held him up. He formed one hand in a hand sign and held out his other as if he was holding a knob. He closed his eyes and began turning his head counterclockwise. After a few seconds, he reopened his eyes and sent the masked individual a smile. "All set." The individual nodded and dived below the water's surface. Kakashi was on edge until the masked individual resurfaced and dragged the sword along to the riverbed. The hunter ninja bolstered the sword on their back and picked up the slumped body of Zabuza. Something bothered Kakashi as he stared at Zabuza's body. In his current state, he couldn't tell what it was. But something wasn't right. "You have my gratitude. I wish you well on your journey, Leaf Ninja." With that, the masked individual bowed and darted off into the trees. As they got out of sight, Kakashi buckled and slumped over. "Kakashi-sensei!" they yelled. Hinata and Sasuke raced over and lifted him from the water's surface. On the shore, Tazuna had taken Hinata's place and was helping Naruto stay standing. He was blown away by what he had witnessed. This was the caliber of the soldiers the hidden villages produced? Sasuke and Hinata carried the limp man over to their side of the river, and she began running her hands along his body, bathing him in green light. That last jutsu really took a lot out of me. Doesn't help that the Sharingan eats up a lot of chakra too. He chuckled. Hinata frowned as her Byakugan gazed over the man. He was desperately low on chakra. He would need a few days at minimum before he would be capable of doing anything. He needed to start his recovery now. Sensei, you are dangerously short on chakra. I don't understand how you're even conscious. Through strength of will and plenty of fiber. He chuckled at her shift into her medical mindset. You need to rest now. Your body needs to start replenishing your chakra. She held up her hand as he started to argue. Don't argue this with me. You're the medic. He surrendered. She placed her thumb on his forehead and began gathering chakra. Don't fight this. Let it flow through your chakra network, or all it will do is give you a massive headache. He nodded as she spread her chakra smoothly throughout his head. His eyes rolled up as he was forced to sleep. She deactivated her Byakugan and took a deep breath before standing back up. She turned to Sasuke and asked, now what? She and Sasuke were relatively fine. Not too short on chakra, but enough to make them a little tired. Naruto and Kakashi were definitely out for the time being. Naruto had never bounced between two kunai points before, and it had taken a lot out of him. Can you help me carry the idiot? Sasuke asked Tazuna.
I'd be happy to.
He responded over the blonde's objection as he lifted the boy onto his neck. Help me with him, Sasuke said as he and Hinata lifted Kakashi onto their shoulders. He turned back to Tazuna and said, lead the way. Chapter 21. Guilt and Contact. Tsunami tightened her nightgown as she made her way downstairs. She had been violently woken up by the banging that echoed throughout the house. Inari rubbed his eyes as he drearily followed her. Who is it, Mom? I don't know, sweetie. I'm going to check. The knocking on the door continued as a voice cried out.
Tsunami, it's me. I'm back.
Relief flooded her body as she rushed towards the door. Father, where have you been? You should have arrived hours ago. You've had us worried sick. She chastised as she unlocked the door. She swung it open and her breath caught in her throat. She was stunned by the strange image before her. Her father had a blonde boy passed out on his back, and behind them were a young girl and boy holding up a passed out gentleman with white hair.
You could say we ran into some trouble on the way here.
Kakashi winced as he slowly opened his eyes. He felt like hell. Every muscle in his body screamed at him as he tried to sit up. Sensei, please don't try to get up. He slowly stopped as the source of the voice quickly drew closer. He gave Hinata a nod as she slowly eased him back onto the bed. He sighed and tried to get more comfortable as she began running through hand signs. A familiar green glow enveloped her hands, and the moment she brought them over his chest, Kakashi began to feel the aching of his muscles fade away. How long was I out? He groggily asked. About 2 days, Sensei. Your chakra levels were severely low after that last attack, she replied as she began shifting from his chest to his arms. That's what I get for copying a jutsu I've never used before. He chuckled before wincing at the constricting feeling of pain on his chest. To be honest, he was damn impressed. The Demon of the Mist definitely lived up to his reputation. Zabuza's chakra levels had to have been insane if he was just going to casually throw jutsu like that around. What do you mean? Hinata asked, clearly confused by his last remark. I'll give you the full talk about my Sharingan when everyone is present. I don't want to repeat myself. For now, just know that I had never used that last jutsu before, and it had drained a hell of a lot more out of me than I thought it would. That was one of the dangers of the Sharingan. Sure, it could allow the user to copy most jutsu they saw, but that did not mean it made the jutsu any easier to use. If he was being honest with himself, the fact that the jutsu required such an enormous amount of chakra wasn't the only reason he was in this state. Ever since he had left Anbu to be a teacher, he had become somewhat lax in his training. For 3 years, he had been waiting to find a suitable team, but none had ever caught his eye. In that time span, he had become increasingly reliant on his natural talent and intuition to get him through any missions he was sent on. God, I need to get back in shape, Kakashi thought to himself, watching as Hinata finished her inspection. Oh, the lecture his sensei would have given him if he could see him now. How long until I'm back on my feet? Without any medical ninjutsu, it would have to take up to about 5 days. But I've been speeding up the process. You should be fully healed by late tomorrow evening. She replied with a smile as she offered him a glass of water from the side table. Thanks, at least that's some good news. He responded, taking the glass from her hands. In the meantime, you and the boys are going to be busy. What do you mean? Go fetch Naruto and Sasuke and bring them back here. We need the talk. We're not out of the woods yet. She felt a nod of concern forming in her gut, but did as he said and started heading towards the door. Despite the seriousness of the situation, she could not help but feel a smidge of disappointment as she glanced back to see the glass of the water already emptied and returned to the bedside table. Another chance to see the face behind the mask slipped by. Kakashi closed his eyes as he thought back to his encounter with the Hunter Ninja. He had been on the verge of passing out, only hanging on through sheer willpower. If he had been fully attentive, he would have noticed at the time what was wrong. The Hunter Ninja had not followed protocol. Zabuza would be coming back. 20 minutes later, what am I going to do with him? Kakashi mused as he stared at his team. He was supporting himself with crutches as they stood in the woods a short distance from the cottage. I'm willing to bet that we'll have about a week until Zabuza decides to show his face again. And next time, he won't be alone. You all have come a long way during our time training, and I'm certain if you work together, you can take out his companion. You know it, Sensei! Just leave it to us! Naruto boasted with a grin. However, it will not be as simple as that. Kakashi cut him off. They were silent as he continued. Remember, their objective is not settling a vendetta. Although I'm sure Zabuza wouldn't mind getting another crack at us. Their objective is taking out Tazuna. I can't protect him, focus on Zabuza, and worry about his companion all at the same time. You boys are going to have to work out protecting Tazuna and dealing with the Hunter Ninja at the same time. What about me, Sensei? Hinata asked. He gave her a silent look before he replied. You're going to help me with Zabuza. Hinata's eyes nearly bulged out of her head, and she felt her knees starting to shake. What the hell do you mean, Sensei? Hinata is amazing, but she can't take down an A-rank criminal. Naruto shouted as he stepped in front of her. I agree. She can handle herself, but she's not up for fighting a Jonin. Sasuke cut in. I didn't expect her to, but her Byakugan can see through his hidden misjutsu. It is irritatingly a rather good deterrent against my Sharingan, so I'm going to need her to help locate Zabuza. So what? That just means he'll target her instead of you. Naruto growled, taking a more possessive stance in front of the girl. You're right. That is why I don't plan to have her with me the entire time. Which brings me to my next step. Naruto, I'm going to need you to design a seal for me. Kakashi calmly replied, ignoring Naruto's outbursts. Even when faced with the prospect of a new seal challenge, the concern did not leave Naruto's face completely. What do you mean, Sensei? I want you to find a way to locate Zabuza in the mist. If I can have Hinata help keep track of him until we can plant a seal on him, then it will make it easier and faster for me to take him down before he decides to take a swipe at Tazuna. Naruto closed his eyes as he rubbed his chin. I suppose I could try. I have a couple of ideas, but I would need some time to figure it out. You have 6 days. Concentrate and get it done. Fine, but if I can't, I don't want you placing Hinata in Zabuza's way. That's fair enough, though it doesn't matter unless Hinata is willing to do it. I won't put her in a position she's not comfortable with, he said as they turned their attention to her. To be honest, Hinata didn't know what was bothering her more. The idea of facing that man again without her team, or her body's reaction to the idea. Hinata could not help but feel shame course over her, as she could not help herself from quivering. The last time she had been close to Zabuza, he had caused Sasuke and herself to completely freeze up from his toxic presence. She had grown leaps and bounds over the last few months, but she was still a teenage girl faced with an opponent clearly out of her league. She had questioned herself in the past whether or not the Hokage had made the right decision in placing her on this team. After their run-in with the Stone Shinobi at the lumberyard and their progress in training, she had begun to feel that maybe she did deserve this spot on the team. Yet, now, as she was faced with an overwhelming threat, she tensed up and was too scared to act. She looked at the two boys and was surprised by their grave looks of concern. Naruto's words rang through her mind. He was right. She couldn't take on an A-rank criminal. He had been so fast on the road that even though she could see him, he still broke through their guard. However, the boys' other words ran through her head as well. They both thought she was skilled. Amazing even. She realized their looks of concern didn't mean that they didn't think she was too weak to handle it. They just wanted to look out for her. This realization roused something inside her. It took her a few moments to recognize the feeling, and she was surprised when she realized what it was. Eagerness. Eager to prove them wrong. She had always considered herself below the two of them. That's why she felt so driven during training, to catch up to them. Now she realized that catching up wasn't truly what she wanted. She wanted to go past them as well, to prove to them that she could handle anything thrown at her. If they needed her to do this, she would try her best. Her shaking didn't fully dissipate, but she was able to get it mostly under control before firmly looking Kakashi in the eyes. "I can do it, Sensei. I will try my best to help you." "That's my girl," Kakashi pleasantly thought, nodding as he straightened his back. "Alright, in any case, that means that you two boys will have to deal with his accomplice and guard Tazuna simultaneously." "I got Tazuna, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto firmly stated. They were all surprised by his declaration. "Really?" Kakashi asked. "You actually want to be the one guarding him?" "I got a trick up my sleeve that will make guarding him a breeze. Trust me, not even Zabuza will be able to get past it," he smugly stated. "That's a pretty big claim. Is that bluster, or are you certain?" Kakashi asked. "Unless he knows as much about seals as I do, I'm positive he won't be able to lay a finger on the old man. Don't you worry, Sensei. After it's set up, I'll be able to help Sasuke with the other guy too." "You can't just leave clones, Naruto." "I don't intend to. Trust me, Sensei. I got it." Kakashi finally relented and gave the boy a nod. "Alright then, I leave it to you, which means you'll be dealing with the Hunter Ninja alone until his project is complete, Sasuke." Sasuke smirked as he shot Naruto a grin. "Just try not to beat him too badly until I get a shot in," the blonde grinned back. "With that taken care of, let's discuss what we'll be doing in the meantime. Naruto and Sasuke, you two will be alternating guarding Tazuna throughout the week. Naruto, whenever you are guarding Tazuna, I want you to have a clone at the house working on your idea. Otherwise, I want all your time spent thinking of a way to track Zabuza." "You got it, Sensei," he replied with a salute. "Sasuke, I want you practicing your lightning jutsu. Your opponent is likely to be from the mist as well, and will likely specialize in water-style jutsu. Try to reduce the charging time for some of them." "Got it. Hinata, you and I will be preparing for dealing with Zabuza. You three are already fast, but you'll need to be faster to deal with Zabuza's speed. Are we clear?" "Yes, Sensei!" they echoed together. "Good, then let's get to work. Sasuke, you'll be guarding Tazuna today. I'll meet up with you around 1. Dismissed." "Roger," the boys replied as they headed back to the house, leaving the other two alone. After he was sure the boys were out of earshot, Kakashi turned to her and said, "Hinata, I want to make sure you are absolutely comfortable with this. You don't have to save face in front of the boys." "It's not that, Sensei," she muttered as she twisted her shirt. I don't want them to keep seeing me as someone who needs to be protected." "I wouldn't say that they think that. They know how capable you are." "Maybe, but unconsciously, they might think differently. I don't want to just prove them wrong. I want to make it so there is no doubt in their minds that I can take care of myself. She firmly replied, raising her gaze to meet his eye. She was silent for a few moments before muttering, I also want to prove myself. Kakashi winced slightly as he knelt in front of her. I'm proud of you for pushing yourself to take that step out of your comfort zone. In my eyes, you have already proven you are a fine kunoichi. Plus, if I wasn't sure you could handle it, I wouldn't have asked. Her face lit up with a small smile, and the faintest blush crept up to her cheeks. Thank you, Sensei. No problem. Now let's get down to work. Are you ready? Yes, Sensei. A little louder. Yes, Sensei! That's what I like to hear. Now, like I said, we are going to focus on getting you fast enough to keep track of Zabuza. How are we going to do that? I'm going to teach you a well-known technique called forcing. You already know that pumping chakra into various parts of your body can help you move faster, jump higher, and hit harder. Forcing involves spreading chakra across your body at once, causing your brain to work overtime. You'll think faster and move more smoothly than ever before. Hinata couldn't suppress a frown. It couldn't be that easy. What's the downside, Sensei? The downside is that it eats up a lot of chakra. I mean a lot. You have certainly increased your reserves over the last month, I won't deny that, but not quite enough to continuously use forcing. Even I can't keep it up for long. You're going to have to learn how to shut it on and off frequently to conserve your chakra. Your Lion Fang technique will also help you with this, by stealing your opponent's chakra. Please activate your Byakugan, and I will give a demonstration. He smiled as he began forming chakra and watched as her veins crept out along her face. She was going to be ready. He was certain of it. Naruto pulled out his hair. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! He cursed. He had been at this for 3 days now, and he had little to show for it. Oh, he had plenty of ideas of how to keep track of Zabuza, but each of them involved Hinata getting closer and closer to the missing ninja that he was uncomfortable with. You couldn't just track a seal because it exists. It had to release a signal that could be followed. His first thought had been to use radio waves. By setting up 2 transmitters on the bridge and 1 on Zabuza, he could create a seal to help triangulate his location and send the information to Kakashi. Trouble was that this would take a long time to ride out, and take up a lot of space. Plus, it would put Hinata in danger, so no go. Next, he had thought of using magnetism. If he could form a seal to make Zabuza's sword a charged magnetic south pole, he could create a sort of compass for Kakashi to follow. Again, this involved them getting close up and personal. Plus, Zabuza could just ditch the sword, leaving it pointless. It all came down to how comfortable he was with letting Hinata get close to that man. The thought of her so close to danger brought an aching pain to his chest. He was at an impasse. If he decided to not make the seal, Kakashi might make her stick with him the entire time in order to keep track of Zabuza. If Naruto did make a seal, he would just be pushing her in harm's way. Dang it, he reiterated as he banged his fist on the ground. Something I can help you with, a soft voice called out behind him. He was startled and turned around to see one of the most beautiful girls he had ever seen approaching him. The slender girl was so close that he was surprised that he had missed her presence. Who are you? Just a friend, she replied with a soft smile. You can call me Haku. Oh, hello. Well, I'm Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. What are you doing here? I'm just gathering some herbs for an ointment I'm preparing. I think the real question is, what are you doing out here? This doesn't seem like the best spot to work. She wasn't exactly wrong. He was sitting in a clearing out in the middle of the woods with his books and supplies scattered around him. Being in nature helps me think. I've always liked to come out into the woods whenever I'm facing a new problem. He replied as he turned back towards his books. That's good. That shows a very mature outlook for your age. Hey, you're not that much older than me. I suppose not. What seems to be troubling you so much? The girl asked as she gently took a seat next to him. Naruto was quiet as he stared at his hands on his lap. He didn't know why he felt like talking to this person, but his stress had been building over the last few days, and he needed an outlet. I'm stuck in a bad spot. A friend of mine could be in serious danger unless I work something out. She could be hurt if I don't figure something out. You make it seem like she can't protect herself. That's not true at all, he retorted as he sprung up, suddenly heated. She's amazing. She can kick so much ass with her special taijutsu thingy and her made-up moves. Yet, you seem to think that it's your mission to protect her. The girl chitted, ignoring his outburst. Naruto was silent as he stared back at the ground. I just want to make sure she stays safe. It sounds like to me this person is very important to you. Haku smiled gently. Images from their first day of their training flashed to his mind. He remembered his feeling of utter content as the three of them dozed off against the training posts. Their warm bodies pressed against his had filled him with a strange feeling he had never really felt before. Yeah, I guess she is. Both of them, really, he murmured. Well, I think that's a very good mindset to have. You see, I believe that when a person has something important to protect, that's when they truly become strong. The girl paused as she let her words sink in. I don't know if it's any consultation, but if your friends feel in any way the same as you do for them, I'm sure they can overcome whatever obstacle seems to be in their way. You said for yourself that you trust this person's abilities. Maybe it was about time that you proved it. Naruto's eyes widened as the girl's message sunk in. Maybe he had been looking down on her. He had let her go off after the Stone Ninja because he had been exhausted to do anything. But the moment he could move, both he and Sasuke had torn after her, worried sick. Maybe they were coddling her. It was time they took a step back and let her rise up to the challenge. He slightly blushed as he realized he had been silent for an awkward amount of time. He tried not to make eye contact with the girl as he tried to think of something else to say. You said you were looking for herbs, right? Do you mind if I help? She closed her eyes and offered him a smile. I would be happy if you did. So the two of them set out gathering the necessary plants. It was actually relaxing for him as they searched for the specific kinds Haku needed. It had helped relieve some of the tension that had been building up in him for some time. After they were done, they stood smiling across from each other. You know, you actually kind of remind me of my friend. Oh? Really? Why is that? She makes ointments too. But you're both soft-spoken and have a way of calming me down. Haku offered a smile. May I ask her name? It's Hinata. That's a lovely name. Well, I thank you for your assistance. These will be perfect to help the one I hold special. I'm sure you will be able to solve your little problem. Maybe try to approach it from a new angle. With that, she offered one last smile as she started heading out of the clearing. Oh, and... Haku had his back turned so he couldn't see what Naruto's reaction would be, but he was willing to bet it would be hilarious. I'm a boy. Haku's prediction came true as Naruto's eyes bulged out of his head. His jaw dropped to the ground as he clutched his head. He's even prettier than Hinata! Haku gave one last chuckle as he waved over his shoulder and walked away. Everyone else had long since returned to the cottage that night before Naruto returned. Inari was quiet upon his arrival and left the table in a hurry. After their argument the previous night, he didn't feel like being in Naruto's presence. Any progress? Kakashi piped up from his newspaper. I've had a lot on my mind, was his only response. I guess not, Kakashi frowned. When it came to seals, Naruto was usually better than this. What was holding him up? Naruto shuffled his way to the table and stood in front of Hinata. He avoided eye contact as he uttered, Could we talk outside? Alone? She was surprised, but fought back a blush as she nodded. Sasuke sent them a confused glance as the two headed outside. What were they talking about that they couldn't discuss here? All the while, Kakashi was studying his reaction. It would be troublesome for the team dynamic to be disrupted by something as petty as jealousy. Naruto shuffled his feet as he stared at the ground. He didn't know what made this so difficult. Hinata actually had to stifle a laugh. This was a complete role reversal. Usually, she was the one too nervous to talk. How's your training coming along? Naruto asked. Hinata could tell that this wasn't what he was after, but she replied, "It's going well. I've got the basics of the technique. It's just a matter of turning it on and off fast enough so it doesn't massively drain on my reserves." Good, was his reply. They awkwardly stood there in a few moments of silence as the full moon reflected on the water. Finally, Hinata started to ask him what was wrong. When he said, "I'm sorry," she blinked and stared at him. She was confused. What did he have to be sorry for? "I haven't been fair to you." "What are you..." "No, I have. I could have had multiple seal ideas done days ago, but I haven't because I didn't want you to have to get so close to Zabuza. I've been a bad friend and a bad teammate. I should trust you enough to take care of yourself. I've just been so worried that I didn't offer you the respect you deserve. I want to apologize." Hinata's eyes softened as she gave a kind smile. "I accept your apology, Naruto. Well, I can understand why it's troubling you. It also means a lot that you care." They both started blushing and gave each other a shy smile. "Besides," she said as she shot him an uncharacteristically sly smirk, "I don't want to just be equal to you boys anymore. I want to be ahead of you." "What? Where's that coming from?" he asked as he took a comical step back. "Let's just say I have a long way to go before I earn that spot that the Hokage has granted me on Team 7, she said as determination gleamed in her eyes. "What are you talking about? You've already done that. You took out 2 Chunin all by yourself. That's incredible." "Maybe, but not compared to the legends who were on this team before us. I want to live up to that legacy." Naruto's mind flashed back to the conversation he had with Kakashi when he gave him his second Hiraishin kunai. He had been ecstatic when he found out his current sensei had been taught by his idol, but he never really made the connection that the Yoindaime had probably been on Team 7 as well. This made him curious. Whatever happened to the Yoindaime's teammates? What were they like? "So, what do you think you're gonna do about the seal?" Hinata asked, breaking his train of thought. "I don't know," Naruto replied as he rubbed his head. "Every seal I thought of involves you guys tagging Zabuza with it, and I doubt he's going to just let you. I know that's the idea, but he's also not gonna wait around for you to just spout off his location to Kakashi-sensei. He'd be on you guys in a heartbeat before you could even speak." His eyes widened as a new idea popped into his head. Hinata shot him a confused look. Naruto's mind was racing as Haku's words raced through his head. Maybe try to approach it from a new angle. All this time, he had been basing the designs of his seals by requiring Zabuza to be tagged. A new train of thought entered his mind, and he shot Hinata one of his signature Cheshire grins. "What is it? Did you think of something?" she asked excitedly. He smirked and replied, "What if we don't have to tag Zabuza?" Confusion splattered across her face. "What do you mean? That's the whole point of you creating a seal." "No. The point is so that we can track Zabuza in the mist. Kakashi-sensei never said Zabuza had to be the one we planted a tag on. He just needs to be able to keep track of Zabuza's location." "I'm still not sure I follow." "I'll explain it inside. Come on." He grabbed her arm and started pulling her back towards the house. She was dragged along and barely kept up as they rushed back inside. Naruto kicked open the door and raced to the table in a blur of yellow and navy.
I got it, Kakashi-sensei! I got a plan for taking down that sneaky snake!
Kakashi kept his composure as he sent him a bored look. On the inside, he smirked. Whatever the two had discussed, it had certainly raised the blonde's spirits and given him the boost he needed to figure out his seal problem. Alright then, let's hear it. Time flew by, and before they knew it, a week had come and gone. They were more somber than usual that day. As of now, Zabuza could return at any moment, and this time he wouldn't be alone. That morning, they all set out with Tazuna, with Naruto leaving a few clones behind with Inari and Tsunami. As they drew closer to the bridge, Naruto's nose started twitching and a pungent odor filled his nose. He may have not been an Inuzuka, but his nose was nothing to slouch at. He growled, placing them all on edge. He smelt blood, and a lot of it. They finally arrived at the bridge, and Tazuna let out a cry of horror. The bodies of his workers were sprawled across the bridge, soaked in blood. Kakashi frowned as a familiar ominous mist started enveloping the group, and they all took up sides around Tazuna. From the other side of the bridge, they could see two dark shadows drawing towards them. Each of them tensed as the form of Zabuza and the Hunter Ninja clearly came into view. Zabuza was sporting a different outfit from their first encounter, and he had his head tilted in a playful manner. However, his eyes were just as full of bloodlust as they had been the first time they saw him.
You know, it's not polite to keep people waiting, Kakashi, and I believe we are due for a rematch.
Zabuza taunted as he hefted the ridiculously sized blade from his shoulders. Kakashi remained silent as he raised his headband over his left eye, revealing the 3 tomoes of the Sharingan. He sent his team a quick glance, and they returned it with a nod. Naruto, you're up. You asked for the job, and you've got it. Make sure nobody gets to Tazuna.
You've got it, Sensei.
With that, Naruto summoned 4 clones which surrounded the old bridge builder. They reached into their bags and pulled out vials of ink and several brushes as they began drawing intricate symbols on the ground. Sasuke pulled out a kunai as he stepped in front of the group of clones and sent a glare at the masked boy across from him. He couldn't help himself when he started shaking. He was just too excited by the prospect of fighting a serious opponent. The fog fully encased the group, and Kakashi felt he not to leave his side. She had her preparations to complete as well. The fog fully encased the group, and Kakashi felt he not to leave his side. She had her preparations to complete as well. Tazuna could only gulp as he felt the killing intent of the Demon of the Mist rise and direct towards him. All of this was because of him. He glanced down at the blonde boys busy at work beside him and made a silent prayer that no one would have to die because of him. Whether he liked it or not, by the end of the day, someone on that bridge was going to end up dead. Kakashi's glare didn't change as he dived headfirst into the mist after Zabuza, who leaped back into the obscure safety of the mist. He wasn't worried about his students' abilities. He was worried about when it would all go to shit. Because even the best laid plans fell apart upon contact with the enemy.